All right, fifth grade. Today we are starting our winter project, and we are going to be painting a snowman using our value scales. So remember, a value scale is a scale that goes from darkest to lightest or lightest to darkest. And we can use these to make something look three-dimensional. So you should have a large blue piece of paper, blue and white paint, and a paintbrush and some water. The first thing you're gonna do is sketch out the head of your snowman. So you could do this with your paint if you want, or if you want to draw it with a pencil first, you are welcome to do that. So I'm going to start with my white paint, and I'm just going to start sketching out a circle that is about half of my paper size. Okay. And just so you know, this is about the same size as the plate on your table. So if you want to use this to kind of trace around to make a circle, you could definitely do that too. So I'm going to do the body of my snowman, and this is just going to be two curved lines that go to the corners of my paper. So it's like his shoulder and up view. Okay, so then I'm going to fill both shapes in solid white. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding my value scales. So I'm not going to clean my brush because I actually want to use the white that's on it to blend and make a softer blue around so it's not such a harsh outline. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the white on my brush, get a little bit of blue, and then I'm going to outline the head of my snowman. So this entire circle, not stopping at the body, but going around the entire outside. Okay, so right now this is just the outline, so I'm going to start blending this in with my white paint to make it look more like a value scale. So once again, I'm going to keep my brush like this. I'm not going to clean it off. This time I'm going to get white on my brush, and I'm going to start painting next to that blue line. And I'm going to start blending around my snowman head in a circle. So we want to keep this in a circle shape so that it stays looking like a sphere and not like a flat circle. So I'm not going to do this because that will flatten out my shape. I want to keep it looking round. Okay, so now at this point, I'm probably going to clean my brush so I can switch to just plain white. And so that I can stop tinting it with blue. So I'm just going to get some white, and I'm going to do a next layer around. So a layer of a circle, and then blend it by painting over that blue that I just did. And then I'm just going to fill the rest in, and I'm keeping in a circle shape so that it looks like a sphere. So this works best if you work kind of quickly so that your paint stays wet. If your paint gets too dry, it's a little bit more difficult to blend. So you're gonna wanna work kind of fast so that it can stay wet. If your paint does dry on you while you're trying to work, you can always add another layer of white and then blend into that while it's still wet. Okay, so I've got his head finished. I'm gonna leave it just like that. And then we're not doing a face or anything today. We're gonna add that once it's dry. So now I'm gonna do the body shape. Once again, leaving white on my brush so that it can blend easily. Get a little bit of blue. And this time I'm gonna outline the sides of my snowman. I'm gonna go under his chin. And I'm gonna go on this side as well. Okay, so we want a shadow underneath his head and on the sides of his body. Okay, so now get some white while it's still wet. paint next to that blue. This time my shape is kind of like curved under the chin and then straight on the sides. Okay, this time I am going to clean my brush because now I want to start filling in with solid white and I don't want blue in this highlight part. So clean brush, lots of white, and start filling in this center area, blending in as I go. So by crossing my paintbrush over what I just painted, it's blending everything together. And blending only really works if you have a lot of paint on your brush. So make sure you've got enough on there. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go over everything and make sure those blue parts are blended into the white by taking my paintbrush and just kind of smoothing everything out. All right, so there is our snowman. So we're gonna let this dry and then we are going to start on our background. All right, so while our snowman is drying, we're gonna go ahead and start on our background. So I went and I got some clean water from the sink. That way the white paint won't mix with our watercolors that we're about to use. So now you're gonna get a large white piece of paper. You are going to have oil pastels on your table, and you're gonna get one of these trays of liquid watercolor with a container of salt. So we're just gonna create a simple watercolor resist for our background with some snow and maybe some wind motion lines that are made with the oil pastel. So using a white oil pastel, you are going to draw maybe some like swirling lines for wind, or some star crossing over lines for snow, some dots, whatever you would like. This is just going to be the background for our snowman. So we're using white so that it shows up when we paint over it. All right, so next you can choose either hot colors or cold colors for this. I think for mine, I'm gonna go with hot colors. And these are liquid watercolors, so you don't need to add any water to them. So you're just gonna start painting over your oil pastel that you just drew. So you could do any kind of design for this. You could do just little like sections of color. You could do stripes. You could do kind of like a tie-dye shape, whatever you want to do. Just fill your background with some color. All right, so my background is filled with color. Now I'm going to use the salt. I'm just going to sprinkle the salt across my paper. And what salt does with watercolor is it absorbs the moisture. So as it sits and dries, the salt will leave these little kind of like sparkly white little textures. So you can kind of already see where the salt is darker. That's the salt starting to absorb the moisture, and then it will leave little white spots. So it will look more like snow. So when you're finished with your snowman in your background, you can put them on the drying rack and clean up your table.